Hello and welcome to the Recursion Cafe, where we play games from the discard pile. In today's game of Unmatched, we have myself on the left and Dan on the right. I'm playing Daredevil, a solo hero with 3 move and 17 health. His ability says that when he has 2 or fewer cards in hand, he may blind boost his attack or defense. So he kind of likes to play close to the ground with few cards in hand. Dan is playing Houdini, essentially a solo hero, but he does technically have a sidekick. 2 move, 14 health, with a psychic that is 5 health, both melee fighters. Whenever he boosts his maneuver, he can teleport anywhere. So I find playing against Houdini similar to playing against Bullseye. They can kind of hit you from anywhere, and they can really control the terms of engagement. They have lots of tricksy cards, especially the cards for my next trick. I think they both share that one, and it's quite tough. And I think you just have to be aggressive, because if you let them play their game, they will always control terms of engagement, and you won't have favourable battles. So here is a flourish using the battlefield item into a grappling hook. Dan is able to boost the attack, and of course a lot of Houdini's cards have boost effects, which is very handy. Here is one of them, and the beautiful best. So if it's your turn, gain 1 action. So Dan will take a 3rd action off of this. Grappling hook allows me to move up to Houdini, which was my plan, to start my turn next to him. And Dan here has the chance to run away, but I think he will take the opportunity just to keep on swinging in. I have 6 cards in hand, so I cannot blind boost, so he can hit me as hard as he wants, really. I anticipate this, and I play Son of a Boxer, so that if he does boost at all, he will take 2 damage because he is stood next to me, unless he has a way of teleporting away. I always like this choice with Son of a Boxer, especially against fighters like Black Panther, where they have a choice to boost, and usually it's not the right call unless you can boost by a large amount. My first action, I'll swing back, and it's a Devil of Hell's Kitchen into a misdirection, which is basically a feint. So it's 2 damage through. I can't blind boost, but I do not get the shuffle effect. Dan sees through my attack and counters it correctly. I breather my Devil of Hell's Kitchen back for my second action. As you can tell, I'm trying to burn through the cards in my hand to get to that 3 card threshold where I can start blind boosting and swinging heavier, essentially. Dan will attack again, first action, and it will be the big reveal into a grappling hook, and he's aware that I cannot blind boost, whereas his card allows him to boost twice. So he'll and return a card that he boosted with to his hands. He'll add 5 to the value of his attack, dealing me 4 damage over my grappling hook, and then return the Grand Escape to his hand. So he's got a card for defense. So that was unfortunate for myself. Here's a Devil of Hell's Kitchen to swing back into another misdirection. However, I can blind boost this one, so it's 6 value into a 2, dealing 4 damage. I don't get the reshuffle, but dealing 4 damage into Houdini is just a pretty good trade, I'd say. And I've still got plenty of deck left, so I'm feeling okay about that. Dan has 1 card in hand, so at this point I am feeling okay to breathe back a Devil of Hell's Kitchen. I think I only have 1 other card in my hand, but I know that, he's unlikely to be able to attack more than once there. Instead, Dan does maneuver away and stands on the high ground with the +2 showing. So I'll move up and play a card through adversity, dealing damage to both of Dan's fighters and ensuring my hand count stays low. It also parks me on a +2 just in case Houdini wants to come up and hit me. So far, it's looking reasonably even. We've both done a fair amount of damage to each other. Dan decides to back off and leaves Bess blocking the way, which is, I guess, a good use for that for a sidekick. I'll walk up to the battlefield item and recur my through adversity. I do wonder why I chose that one, but I think just having mobility against Houdini is a good thing at the moment. Dan will boost with all part of the show, healing 2, and at this point I then realise, the scheme token is right next to the +2. That's not ideal, but it's too late now. So Dan picking his engagements really well when I have 4 cards in hand, meaning that I can't blind boost. So here is a buffed, an illusion of my own design, but fortunately I have a feint in hand, so I can cancel it. It still does 2 damage over the feint, but it's better than the 6 swing that it could have been. Or actually more than that, if he had boosted. Action 1, I'll swing back. It's my 3rd Devil of Hell's Kitchen this game. Fortunately, Dan does not have his 3rd misdirection, so it is a swap with Smoke and Mirrors, so Bess takes the damage. I do blind boost, unfortunately it's a feint, So Bess is left on 2 health. But for me, I do get the Devil recursion, including 2 feints, which I'm pretty happy with. So I'll shuffle those back in. And then I'll maneuver away to the other battlefield item. So at this point, we are drawing cards up. I do manage to get the first aid kick, so I heal some health back and keep up my hand size. Dan is at a full 7 cards. I have drawn up to 6. So we both took a couple of turns just to kind of reset there. I know that, or I suspect that the barrage is coming from Dan, so having cards in hand is not the worst thing at the moment, and my health total is reasonably high, so I can take at least a little bit of punishment. Dan boosts in and gains an action through the boost ability of that card, which is a best card, and will attack on first action. I will use my item in defense. It's a sleight of hand into a boosted feint. I'm pretty happy to boost that card just because it is so incredibly versatile for Houdini on the offense. Second action, it will be a sleight of hand again into a son of a boxer. I was expecting, I think, a bigger attack here, but with sleight of hand he can control the amount of damage he wants to put in, whether he wants to really boost up or just keep going. Here's the For My Next Trick, which is a great card to play in that situation. It nullifies son of a boxer and gives him another action if he wants to swing again. But instead he decides to boost and sits himself on the +2 on the other side of the map. I'll walk over and then play through adversity to run through both of his fighters since they're standing right next to each other. And it fortunately gets me out of the way of that +2. So again, Dan body blocks with Bess and will attack with Bess. I'm not too familiar with Houdini's deck, so I'm not sure what this could be, but it's a flourish into a take a knee. It turns out flourish isn't any card. So I have to decide whether or not to blind boost first before he boosts his attack. I do not. He will boost with a sleight of hand, throwing him a card and dealing me 3 damage. However, the effect of take a knee takes the top card of my deck and heals me for 3 as well. So no damage done there. That was pretty fortunate on my part. I do lose a Devil, but here's the breather to bring it right back. And of course I swing into Bess, telegraphing it just a little bit. Dan correctly counters with a misdirection, but Bess is off the field now. So it's a reasonable trade-off, I think. And I'm left on 3 cards, which is supposedly my happy place. Unless Dan finds a way to combo me out of cards. So here we go. Dan will boost this maneuver with set the stage, allowing him to look at my hand and discard a card of his choice. We have 2 versatiles and a attack card. He doesn't take the feint, he takes the man without fear, sorry, which is the attack that can be double boosted. Maybe he's just worried about that now that he's out of misdirections, which is fair, to be honest. And then he skips the other side of the map. So I will maneuver and just park myself in the middle of the map so I can attempt to track him down wherever he decides to go on his next turn. Houdini decides to boost his maneuver and recovers 2 health because it's all part of the show, and he steps in. Dan likes playing aggressively with most of his characters, as viewers of this channel might have noticed, and so he's not playing the kind of controlled distance fighter Houdini, he's wading right in. It's a For My Next Trick into a feint. I knew something was coming and the best option is just to feint it, usually with trick fighters like Bullseye and Houdini. So that cancels his action chain. It means he stood right next to me for my turn. I will breather back. Hey look, it's a Devil of Hell's Kitchen. I've lost count of the number of Devils I've played this game already. And I'll swing in with my second action. I wonder what that might be. Hey look, it's a Devil of Hell's Kitchen into a Grand Escape. So Dan has to choose whether or not to boost his card first before I get to blind boost, which is nice. So that does favor the attacker when both players are able to boost their defenses and attacks. It seems worth it right now. So it boosts up by 2. I also boost by 2, so it ends up taking 2 damage, and I get my shuffle effect of the top 5 cards in my discard pile. So now that the misdirections are out, I know that I can fight to exhaustion and keep going. Dan plays a Magician Never Reveals His Secrets. Draw 2 cards, gain an action, so he still has 2 actions and is stood right next to me. Draws up for some extra tempo. I will defend, and it is another flourish into a grappling hook. I get to choose whether or not to blind boost before Dan boosts. It's an interesting choice here because I know I've reshuffled, but I don't want to throw away any key cards. I do boost, it's only a feint, and Dan boosts with a 3, so I end up taking 2 damage in order to 6 into a 4. That was an unfortunate blind boost on my part. I really could have used that feint. And I will simply maneuver around to that +2. You might wonder why I wasn't aggressive at that point. Well, the reason being, my hand is 2 Devil of Hell's Kitchen and a 3 adversity, so that's not ideal. Dan, of course, sees this, takes advantage of it, and walks up to me and hits me with the big reveal, where he can double boost his attack. So he puts it up to a 6 with a Grand Escape and Smoke and Mirrors, and can return 1 card back to his hand. So that was hefty, and I'm down to 3 health. However, it is my turn. Dan only has 1 card in hand that I know, and he knows my cards. So here's a item boosted Devil of Hell's Kitchen, blind boosted on top of that for an 8 value quote unquote organic Devil of Hell's Kitchen, dealing 5 damage to Dan over the defense. And of course he has no cards in hand, so here is the last Devil of Hell's Kitchen to bring Houdini down to 0. So that's game. Really dynamic matchup there, and I think honestly in terms of the average game between these two characters, it can go either way. Houdini has an unprecedented ability to be able to control distance and to control the engagement, but in this case Dan played really aggressively, and it was a lot of fun. So I'd be interested to see how Daredevil matches up in a slightly different context. But yeah, I think it's a matchup that Daredevil can excel at because Houdini only has the 3 feints, and he can boost his values up to hit above Houdini's defenses. Thank you everyone for watching. See you next time.